Hello everyone, let's talk about what I read over the weekend and give it a review. Hello everyone and welcome back to Through the Pages with Dee. So I've had quite a busy weekend. I have finished and completed a book that I was reading because I refused to finish the last few pages. I didn't want to let go of the story, but I've finished it now. Also because I got the physical copy, which is a lot easier for me to read. And then on Saturday, I read two other books because they were very short, just novellas, 150 pages in one, 200 pages in the other. So I read the 150 pages in like 2.5 hours, and then I moved on to the 200 page book. So I thought rather than spread these out, which gives me more time for reading, I would talk about them all in one. But that doesn't mean to say that that is to discredit any of these authors just because I'm doing them in one whole video. I hope nobody feels that way. I hope nobody's upset that I've combined these into one video. But it's just because I have read them all this weekend and I may as well put them all in one video, and that leaves me room to talk about other books and more reading time in essence, because if I space them out I have to then space out my reading, and I'm quite a quick reader, so I like to get as many reads in as I can and explore my avenues through authors. So I hope everybody's okay with that. So the first book I sort of mentioned there was the one I've been raving about everywhere. I'm sure everybody knows what this is by now. I've put it on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, so everybody should know this title. And it is the Moshe Winter debut novel, Born in Fury. I had this sent to me by Moshe via an ebook link. So I read the majority of this via ebook. But I decided I wanted the physical copy as well. I would love it if this have been signed by Moshe, but the miles that we are apart, that seems highly impossible. But I needed to buy the physical copy because this, for a debut novel, is fantastic. So I finished, and I'm pretty sad, to be honest, that I finished. But it had the ending that I kind of thought it was going to have, which was a happy ending. Don't always appreciate a happy ending. Sometimes I want a disastrous ending or a twist in an ending. I'm just probably a little bit sick and twisted in my own mind that way. But it had the ending that suited the story. And it's a fantastic tale of, as I have said, a fight for revenge, a theme of revenge. But there are so many character arcs in this book. You go along the tale with two main POVs, which is Yue from the Rahavi tribe and Rizu, who is also from a Rahavi tribe, and they have events in their lives that are quite sad. Rizu especially is orphaned because of the Astaris Empire, and they just basically want to wipe out the Rahavi from existence, and they're doing a good job of it. They're succeeding, and the Rahavi are so few that they don't really have the manpower to, in essence, fight the Empire. But regardless of that, because of their honourable sense, they still wish to fight. So their journeys as they go along the way, as I say, Rizu is an orphan, and she sees this particular commander of the Astaris Empire called Regis, who is responsible for the death of her parents, and she holds this grudge. So as you follow the story with Rizu, she goes to an assassin's academy to become an apprentice assassin, and she learns many things. But there's a certain twist within that story that makes things very interesting. But I will say that revenge is sought, and it was a revenge that I took great pleasure in reading, because the character Regis and the way that Moshe has written this character is very reminiscent of Joe Abercrombie, I'd say, when you're talking about grim dark. I personally didn't think that Joe Abercrombie was that grimdark, but then again, I've only read the first book, and that didn't impact me in what I thought that grimdark was going to be that much. But I've heard everybody say the follow-ons from that are more grimdark, so we compare grimdark to Joe Abercrombie. So to give you guys the essence of the level of maliciousness from this character, I'm going to compare him to some of Joe Abercrombie's characters. But he could also be compared to Regal from Robin Hobb. He's got that essence about him. He is just vile, disgusting, and yeah, things happen. And that is a great read in itself. If that was the only character I was reading about, I'd be very happy with that. However, we get a twofer. It's a 2 POV book. So we get Yue. And Yue too goes through this major character arc and twists and turns and horrific events in his life. But he also befriends, and I don't think this is giving too much away, but he befriends a dragon. And he names the dragon Lakara, and he's his blood brother. They are buddies. And a majority of the back end of the story deals with Yue and the dragon and their relationship and the things that they do for the Rahavi tribe. And if that's maybe too much of a giveaway, I'm sorry. I hope it's not. I hope it doesn't spoil the story, because with this Born in Fury book, I would definitely say it's a must read, because for a debut novel, and as I've said in other videos, the influences that Moshe describes, and he also comments in the back of his book as to who his influences are, and Stephen Erickson is one of them, Stephen King is another, we also have George R.R. Martin. So his influences are explained in this book in his writing style, and he also watched many videos from Brandon Sanderson of techniques how to write, and you can tell, you can actually tell within this debut novel of the time he's taken to study and perfect his skill. It's a fantastic debut novel. I believe in the first 3 days of launch it sold 100 copies, which I think is amazing. Maybe 101 now that I bought it, but I've had back and forth conversations with Moshe, and he's a great guy, and he's so proud of his work, and he should be, because it's so good. But it's a fantastic tale. It is a quest tale. There is a quest in it. There is, like I say, the theme of revenge and friendships and loyalty, and just the kindness to your fellow man, really. It's brilliant, and it's set in this great fantasy, wonderful elaborate surroundings with, obviously there's a dragon, so you know, all the true hardcore fantasy fans who want a dragon thrown in there, you've got one. It's just great. So we've got all those elements. We've got the fantasy, we've got the gore, we've got the darkness, we've got in the darkness there's, you know, some extreme levels where even I do like darkness. I was a bit sort of but it makes me want to jump into the pages and basically, pardon my French, kick the shit out of that person, which I did want to do with regards to Regis, because he's just a disgusting person. But that shows the talent of Moshe's writing. So this book is a 5-star for me, even as a debut novel, where you think, and maybe my eye doesn't pick up on them, because I'm not a writer. I just read books. I'm just your average everyday Joe, and I just enjoy reading. I may not be picking up on things that somebody more educated and more with a writer's background may pick up on. But for me, as the everyday Joe, I thought this book was phenomenal. So if you get the chance and you're a huge fantasy fan and you just want the Stephen Erickson kind of George R.R. Martin type fantasy, give Moshe Winter's Born in Fury a go. That's my advice. So Moshe, brilliant. I loved it. Then I went on to read a very short book. It literally took me 2.5 hours to 2.5 hours to read. Not very long at all. And my daughter actually got it. My youngest girl, she got it for my birthday. It was on my Amazon list, and bless her, she saw it and picked it out. Probably because she's studying psychology. that's probably had an element to play in her choice. But we're both very like-minded, so this was on my list. I'm a therapist, and my patient is going to be the next school shooter. And this is by Dr. Harper. Now, please, when I tell you about this book, please don't think that it's some sort of autobiography. It is not. I have Google researched this just to make sure, and this is complete fantasy. So everything about this is fantasy. There is no element of truth within this tale. So everything is fantasy. But it is an extremely fun book to read, and that may be the wrong word to use, but I did enjoy reading it. And what the author has done within this book is made connections with characters, and that was the part I enjoyed the most, because you're going through these 6 different case files. So you've got the likes of the first, which is the school shooter, and that's a young kid called Alex, and there's the threat there, and he's going to see the therapist, Dr. Harper, and he's explaining his thoughts towards this girl called Emma, and he's obviously love-struck and sickened by that, but he's obviously having these thoughts of, well, she's being quite cruel to him, he thinks, and he decides that maybe, you know, he wants to reap revenge and take the extreme measure of that, which can't be condoned in any way, shape or form. As I say, this is fantasy. It's not reality. This is a fantasy book. The next patient we talk about comes under the heading of OCD rituals, which is a gentleman called Phil. And he, every 5 minutes, has to repeat this ritual where he says, love 1, love 2, sorry to bother you. Because if he doesn't say the ritual correctly, then the man in the mask and the armour comes and stabs his wife. And this has happened. His wife, in the therapist's office, lifts up her shirt and shows that she's got all these stab wounds on her stomach. And that is a very, very interesting tale of who the masked man actually is. And it kind of, am I going to give this away if I say, I don't know if I'll give it away. In some way, shape or form, it relates to a cult. Then, that's all I'm saying. The next patient is Choir Boy. Now, if you are going to give this particular book a chance, I would advise you strongly to pay attention to Choir Boy, because that becomes very relevant to this whole story. As I say, the author has done this fantastic technique of tying in, which is something I really love in a book, of tying in the characters. Alex, I'd say, the school shooter, isn't really tied in to any of the following characters, but all the others are tied in. And regardless of whether the stories were factual or not, whether the take from the psychiatrist's point of view is factual or not, didn't really bother me, because I'd done my research, so I knew it was fantasy. So I wasn't looking for factual elements of psychotherapists. I wasn't looking for that. I was just looking for a good story. And you do get that in this. So I would say, in the chapter where we're talking about the file for Choir Boy, pay close attention to that, because that will sort of make some things a little clearer. Then from Choir Boy, we move on to PTSD nightmares. And this one, again, was very interesting. We're talking about... Can I go into this? We're talking about these horrendous nightmares in relation to zombie type things, where human flesh is being eaten. And the police are actually looking for a suspect who's acting out such things as being like a zombie. But this particular patient comes into Dr. Harper's office saying they are having nightmares of doing this. In their nightmares, they are chomping on human flesh. So the therapist in this whole book is pretty much an investigator. They are investigating certain mysteries. So each case file seems to be like a mystery. And they, in their psychiatry way, are delving into the clues as to who could possibly be the culprit. So that's what I liked about it. It reminisced me of murder mysteries. It has a murder mystery element to it, and I quite enjoyed that. And then finally, we have... Then we have abusive couple. Again, they tie in to the very end of the story. And then we have patient 220, which makes the whole story make sense. You get all the answers you've been looking for. And it's great in the way that Dr. Harper, which is the fantasy character in this, it's not a real doctor. Dr. Harper is speaking with these clients or patients and trying to determine who is ultimately the zombie, or the cannibalistic person going around chewing on human flesh or attacking people in the dark and biting lumps out of them. So it is in essence a murder mystery, but it has twists and it has character arcs, very good character arcs that you don't see coming. I did really enjoy this. Like I say, it took me 2.5 hours to read. That's how much I enjoyed it, because I just flew through the pages. The writing is excellent. It's not anything challenging. It's very dialogue driven, very conversational back and forth with the doctor to patient. So it's a very nice, quick, easy read. But again, like I said, complete fantasy. There's no real element to this. It's fantasy. So this may be your cup of tea, it may not. If it's not your cup of tea, that's fine. There is some humour in this. It's not completely all just, you know, kind of doom and gloom, psychotherapy, psychiatrist sort of. It's not that kind of environment. There is some elements of humour in it, but it's just different. It's just a different take on how to do something like this. And as I say, it's fantasy, so don't take it serious. And then another indie author like Moshe, Ida, got in touch with me and asked me again, would I potentially have the time to review her book? And I was, of course I'll review your book. So she sent me a copy of her book, which is The Artificial Structure, formerly known as The Moon. And I've just finished that today. So Ida, what I have to say is this. This is the first proper sci-fi book I've read. Yes, I read Kindred, but it's got a small element of time travel to it. The time travel element of the story is in there, but it's not your main focus as you take it from a reader's point of view. Your main focus is all the bad things that are happening and how is Dana going to cope with it all. But this has a very, very much more of a sci-fi context to it. It's a dystopian world, and through consumerism, the past elements of human beings have destroyed the earth, and the powers that be were so innate in gaining profit that they forgot to watch what was happening to the planet. So the planet has become destroyed, but some super brains out there have come up with this blueprint for a moon and an AI to right the wrongs that the past humans have created. So this AI has now been created, and it's called the Ladder. And one of the main, so it's multi POV. So we've got Marianne, Darlin, and we've got Sabine. And Sabine's uncle was a big player in creating the AI. So he's treated like royalty. So you've got the lobbyists, who are the main people and the ones that are looked at as important people. It's like a two-class civilization. So you've got the lobbyists, who are the important people, and then you've got the indigents, who are the lower classes, who are living on the streets and basically feeding on what are called the necessaries, which are sort of vending machines, if you like. They're this kind of robot vending machine where you get fed from it once a day, but they break down, and so there's this vast idea of necessaries who have different roles. So you have like a vending machine that gives the people food, and then you have cleaning necessaries, and you have tutor necessaries. So there's all these different necessaries, and the lobbyists always are on this track to get to a better position. They want to become what's called the face, and these are in essence the politicians, who are the faces of the powers that be. And Sabine's father has had a chip implanted into his head and is about to be promoted to a face. So he then will get to speak to the people and be the face. So in essence it explains itself. He will get to speak to the people, so he will be a face of the nation, so to speak. But Marianne and Darlon are indigents, And Marianne's son has gone off to what's called the education. And Darlan is an artist. He's only young, he's not that old. And he's an artist, but art is kind of illegal. You're not really supposed to draw. You're not really supposed to be able to get your hands on pens and papers and things like that. But he does secretly, he draws. And they live very close to each other. And Marianne is kind of in favour of the lobbyists because she believes that's where her son has gone. And Darlan is slowly but surely getting to the attitude of he's very much against the lobbyists. And there is also a thing called the demolition, the order of the demolition. And through certain things that happen, Darlan joins the order of the demolition. And the character arcs for these three characters, especially for Darlan, are fantastic. I found that Ida explained things in a very euphoric kind of way. It wasn't necessarily all doom and gloom. She does have a fantastic prose about the way that she writes, and she definitely gives you enough information to kind of understand what's going on and understand what the necessities are, what drones are. Drones are, rather than a drone that we're used to at this present time, in our time, a drone is a human form of a robot, so an AI, but in a human form. And they do the bidding of what the ladder wants them to do, but in the guise of a human form, so that in essence it's supposed to make the indigents feel more comfortable around them. But the vast majority of indigents don't like the lobbyists because they're massively the second-class citizens in this world, and they're mostly against the lobbyists. And it's just a great sort of, as I say, it's my first proper sci-fi tale that I've ever read. And I liked the dystopian world. I've found that that's probably going to be where I like to go with sci-fi, is this dystopia. I like it when I watch games. When you watch a walkthrough of a game played, I like dystopian worlds. I like the Last of Us. That's one of my favourite all-time games I've watched played all the way through. And this has very much that kind of feel about it, where you know the world's just ruined. It's kind of impacted dirt and dust, and there's something wrong with the air, and there's acid rain, and you know it doesn't feel like there's anything hopeful about it. But even though the AI, the ladder, is the antagonist, again, she's another author who's managed to do that. She's managed to take the antagonist and give them that element that I quite like, where they're not wholeheartedly the enemy. They're not the enemy. There is something about them that has that element of, I don't know what the word is, but it's not wholeheartedly wanting to do what's bad or being very one-sided in their opinion. I thought the ending was fantastic. I really liked this ending. Now, usually, I am an ending complainer. You guys will find that out. When I read a book, I can love the book all the way through, and I'll get to the end and I think, I wasn't looking for that. I needed a twist. I wanted something else. I didn't want this happy ending. However, with this book, the ending was perfect. Absolutely perfect. So, Ida, I very much enjoyed your book. For my first sci-fi, and I did have to stop and sort of readjust to some of the vocabulary that you used. I found it didn't flow so easily for me, so I had to just jump back and reread to make it make sense again, because there were slightly words that I weren't familiar with, so I just had to re-go over and make sure it was making sense to me. But other than that, I love the character arcs. I loved the dystopian world. I love the fresh ideas of things being the necessaries, because in essence, that's what they are. They're necessary to the livelihoods of the people. And yeah, the picture that she paints of this dystopian world is just, you can see it, you can feel it. She writes the characters in such a way that you actually visualise them. And I'm all about the visuality of being able to see what that author is trying to tell me. I know when it's a good book if I can visually see characters and potentially hear voice in my head. So I enjoyed this book thoroughly. Thank you, Ida, so much. Thank you, Moshe. Thank you both. We must support our indie authors, because I think what we have forgotten is that this is up and coming talent, and without them, the book writing world would just pause. So we have to support our indie authors 100%. And added to that is, these people are doing this themselves. They're doing this off their own back, without any publisher behind them, and this is all their own money. So that alone needs to be acknowledged, because that is, in my opinion, is so brave and so fantastic, and I admire you both you guys, both Moshe and Ida. I've thoroughly enjoyed both your books, and yeah, thank you is all I can say. Thank you for giving me a chance to read what is your hard, heartfelt work. I've been blessed to be able to read your works, and you've both done a fantastic job. I'm a no one. I'm just like a Joe Nobody reading books. But for me, I think they're both amazing. I think they're amazing novels. So thank you, Ida. Thank you, Moshe. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to read your work. I really appreciate that. And that is so far what I've read this weekend. So, on that note, oh, and also, I must just say, today I will be releasing the chapters of Bloody Rose on my Discord, which is the Nicholas Eames second book from Kings of the Wild. So if you are jumping in on this read along with us, you need to, in the description, find my link for Discord, join my Discord, and then you will see that there will be a chapter called Bloody Rose, and underneath it there will be the chapters that we will be releasing for the read along. If you jump ahead of the chapters, please just remember we're only talking about the chapters that are opened. Other than that, if you want to talk about anything after those chapters, we won't be doing that. So you have to wait till we open up the following chapters. So I think it's going to be 3 chapters that we're opening. So chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. So look on my Discord, or look down below in the description. Join my Discord, look for Bloody Rose, and then underneath it will be chapters that we're releasing, and that's where we'll be able to discuss what we've just read. Probably spoiler free as much as we can. Okay, so that's a lot. I hope you guys will give these independent authors a go. Maybe you'll either want to try this random little novella. It was fun to read. I think this too might be indie published. I can't actually see a published house on it. Yeah, nope, I can't see a publishing house, so this too may well be an indie author. So yeah, we've got, it's like Indie Monday. So yeah, that's Moshe's book. Then Dr. Harper's, and then Ida's. So if you like the sound of any of those, give them a chance. I would strongly recommend as a read. And don't forget the Bloody Rose read along. Okay guys, that's me for today. I will see you all next time. I've been Dee, and when I see you next time, it will be, oh yeah, Through the Pages. Bye bye.